Sometimes I'm asked, what's it like to work with you? How exactly does public speaking or media coaching work? In this episode, I'm pulling back the curtain and giving you a behind the scenes look at a session with one of my clients where I help her prepare for her TEDx talk. Dr. Helm is a psychologist, professor, public speaker, and author who enthusiastically wants to help people have healthy, fulfilling relationships and strong mental health. She has over 25 years of experience working with kids, adults, couples, and groups in a wide variety of clinical settings. Right now, Dr. Helm is director of clinical mental health graduate programs at Lewis University. That's in the Chicago area. Her TEDx talk, Revolutionize Your Relationship, A Little Goes a Long Way, is deeply personal and full of incredibly valuable lessons that we can all apply to our relationships. It was a joy to help her hone her message in this one-on-one session. Yes! This is so exciting. So exciting.
I don't know how exciting it is, but that's okay.
You're going to be great.
I'll be excited after it's over and if it goes well.
Yes, ma'am. And I have a list of steps on what you can do as soon as it's over to promote it, because that's just the first step, right? I mean, it's a lot of steps. You had to pitch it, you had to get there, you had to practice for a couple months, you had to memorize. We got the wardrobe. I know that this has been hard. And then, but once it's over, how do you monopolize on that moment, right? And promote your company and your offerings, and also make sure that you can land more public speaking gigs for a good dollar amount after this.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So in the meantime, have you timed yourself? Do you feel like you're on time? Are you good?
Yeah, so it can't be more than 18 minutes. And I come in somewhere around 16:25, 16:30.
Great. Wonderful. Awesome. And how many times have you practiced this in front of your family, colleagues? Have you been practicing in front of people?
So I forced my class to listen to it last week. And I practiced in front of my daughter, and I practiced in front of a couple people. But mostly I've been practicing to my mirror.
Okay, cool. But you've been standing up and actually verbalizing it, not just great.
Yeah, so I'm standing and I'm standing up now. So yeah.
Awesome. And you did in front of your whole class. What was the feedback from your class, your students?
Some were kind of bland faced because it was right before class began. And then others, were really complimentary. I was still having some memory glitches at the time. So, but overall good.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Good. Okay.
And even if it wasn't, it's too late now.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Did you get any feedback, any notes were any students, courageous enough to tell you things positively or negatively, any kind of feedback?
So I got positive feedback. Now I'm their professor, so they're probably going to be more reluctant to give negative feedback despite me asking for it. But some positive feedback, they were touched by the story, they found it interesting, things like that.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure it's great, but yeah, you're right. They're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
You're Professor Helm, you're Dr. Helm.
Yeah.
Would you like to, let's do it. Want to do it? Want to run through it from the beginning? Now, what are you going to wear? Are you going to be wearing what you're wearing right now?
No. Do you want me to show you what I'm going to wear?
Please. That'd be awesome.
I have it right here. Okay, here we go.
Let's do it.
It was somewhere around 1980. And I remember my dad putting me to bed. Like any other 7-year-old, I promptly snuck out of bed to eavesdrop on my parents' conversation. Here's what I saw. My parents were sitting in our horribly ugly 1970 style chairs. Let's face it, not a good era for furniture design. They were facing one another talking. I also heard my mom laugh, before they discovered my arm sticking out from the stairwell and promptly escorted me back upstairs to bed. Damn, caught. Now fast forward to 1983, when my maternal grandfather suddenly passed away. I was 10, and this was a shock for all of us. Soon after his death, I remember my mom started sleeping in the couch downstairs while my father remained upstairs in their bedroom. Now, when I got to junior high, my parents called a family meeting. Ugh, anxiety. Now, I don't know about you, but when family meetings were called in my house, oh, it definitely meant that one of us was in trouble. Either someone got caught lying about something, they weren't doing their fair share of chores around the house, or they were messing up in school. Personally, I never did any of those things, but this family meeting was different. It was tense. My parents weren't looking at each other. My brothers and I weren't goofing around. I can't recall which one of my parents spoke first, but they announced that they were separating. Now, the rest of the family meeting went exactly how you think it might. We still love you, blah, blah, blah. It's not your fault, blah, blah, blah. I was stunned. Perhaps that's why I don't remember much. As it turns out, I was the last one to know, as my brothers had figured it out weeks before the family meeting. What happened? How could this have happened? How could I have not seen this coming? What did I miss? When did they stop talking with one another? When I asked my parents what happened, each of them had a different version of the story to tell. But something that my dad said stuck with me forever. He said, "We love each other, but we stopped liking each other." You stopped liking each other? Huh? Is that a thing? Now, you might have figured out by now that I was a very curious kid, unrelenting in my quest to figure out the why of things. I'm sure that the breakup of my parents' marriage subconsciously influenced me to work with couples in some of their darkest moments, helping them figure out the why in their lives. Couples counseling is exciting, exacerbating, overwhelming, and completely unpredictable. It's a little like watching any good sporting event combined with a David Attenborough nature series. The female is crying, clearly upset about something happening in the relationship. The male slowly reaches for her hand, his eyes misty. And as the therapist, I'm thinking, yes, yes, yes. The male gently touches her hand and she says, "Get your hands off me. Don't touch me. I still don't trust you. Foul, foul," I cry. This is exactly what happens in couples counseling. Couples fight hard to find their way back to one another after anger, hurt, misunderstandings, and disappointments get in the way of their closeness. John Gottman and his colleagues performed some groundbreaking research in the 1990s and 2000s, where he found that he could predict divorce with about 91% accuracy simply by listening to a couple's interactions for 5 minutes. You and your partner should not sit next to Dr. Gottman on a plane. He brought couples into his love lab and he observed them performing tasks together like cooking, watching TV, and solving problems. And he found that when couples engaged in something he called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, they were likely to lead to divorce. Gottman says that criticism usually begins with something he calls a harsh startup and ends with attacking your partner's overall character. The difference between a complaint and a criticism is something like this. Hey, hon, can you please remember to take the garbage out? You keep forgetting, and it is really frustrating. Versus, what's the matter with you? You're so stupid that you can't even remember to take the garbage out. Now you can clearly see the difference here, can't you? One isolates a behavior while the other attacks your partner's overall character. Contempt can include sarcasm and cynicism and places one partner as being superior to the other. Name calling, eye rolling, sneering, and mockery are all signs of contempt. Now, defensiveness is harmful because it gets in the way of us actually listening to our partners. It instead actually blames them for the dynamic, and it doesn't allow us to take responsibility for our part of what's happening. I might actually take the garbage out, but you're such a control freak that why should I bother? I can't do anything right as far as you're concerned anyway, so what's the point? Now, stonewalling is the worst of these because it communicates to the other partner that they don't matter. The stonewaller is emotionally withdrawn, unresponsive, often ignoring their partner when being spoken to. They often stare off like this. Each of the four horsemen is harmful, but stonewalling is the worst of these because it foretells the death of the relationship. Sue Johnson's emotion-focused therapy for couples talks about the importance of couples having a close emotional bond with one another. She says that we've come to our relationships with needs for comfort, emotional security, emotional connection, and when we don't get these needs met, we're wounded and deeply hurt. She says that we've had these needs since childhood. Now, both of these theories support my own work with couples and what I've found. Without emotional closeness, our relationships really do struggle. Most of you are probably aware of this disturbing statistic. Nearly 50% of first-time marriages end in divorce, while nearly 67% of second marriages do. Now, this doesn't even begin to take into account the numbers of non-married couples breaking up each year. There's lots of relational hurt out there. What is happening? How can we fix it? Well, here's what I found in my own work with couples. A little really does go a long way. A little negativity goes a long way to hurting your relationship. Negativity can consist of things like insults, criticism, and thinking that you're so much smarter than your partner that you question why you're with them in the first place. Now, this is what couples counselors deal with all the time. The colluding look from the other partner that says, do you see this? Do you see this here? He's an idiot. She's crazy. I know that you agree with me. I just know that you do. Everyone has a narrative to tell in couples work. Both partners have completely different viewpoints about what's happening, why, and whose fault it is. Couples therapists don't solve couples' problems. I know, right? They help the couple listen to one another. They help the couple heal their process with one another. They help the couple restore emotional closeness. A little goes a long way. Contempt, anger, thoughtlessness, selfishness, and infidelity will absolutely destroy your relationship over time. When couples pay attention to resentment when it first appears, they can figure out what it means together. It will appear. It's meaningful, and it usually means that something needs to change. Maybe one person needs to take the garbage out instead of the other. But when resentment is ignored or buried, it can become another destructive negative pattern, hurting your relationship over time. A little goes a long way. When your partner reaches for you, do you respond to them in the moment, or do you ignore or reject them? The Gottmans call these bids for affection and connection, an emotional reaching out, an attempt to share something important, maybe something that happened at work, something on TV, or a desire for physical closeness. What do you think happens when these bids are rejected or ignored time and time again? What is the message sent? I don't have time for you right now. You're not important, or I don't care. Woo! Do you want to be in a relationship with someone who helps you feel this way? Me either. Yet these are not uncommon scenarios. A little goes a long way. But wow, here's something truly exciting. A little positivity goes a long way too. A little positivity goes a long way to healing what hurts, to fixing what's broken. Positive things like being kind and thoughtful, like, I know that you've had a hard day. Go relax while I make you dinner. Or thank you for emptying the dishwasher. I really appreciated that. Or you went all out for my birthday celebration. It made me feel very cared about. Expressing appreciation and gratitude lets your partner know that the way they care for you matters. And when we feel like we matter, remaining committed is that much easier. Listening, just listening to your partner without giving advice on how you think they should handle something, or your opinion, deeply communicates how important your partner is to you. So is having insight into their worlds and understanding how your behavior impacts your partner. A little goes a long way. Responding consistently to your partner's bids for you is powerful for both of you. It will make both of you feel like you matter. And when we feel like we matter, our relationships are that much easier. A little goes a long way. Romantic relationships are in themselves revolutionary, because to form and maintain a close emotional bond with another human being brings forth all kinds of challenges, because let's face it, they aren't you. I know this is going to come as a shock to everybody here, but they don't think how you think, feel what you feel, or see the world in the same way you do, which is why the little things we do matter so much. Emotional connection is based on a series of little things like saying I love you and showing your partner in the ways that they need it. Consistently keeping your promises to do little things like empty the dishwasher, set aside time to talk, or seeking physical closeness with your partners, because these things build trust and demonstrate our commitment to our partner over time. When your partner sees that you're trying, they're likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. A little goes a long way. Little things add up to big things. Little things create patterns over time. Little things will make or break your relationship. So now, a long married person myself, I understand my parents' struggle much better. I totally get what my father taught me that day about why they broke up. We love each other, but we don't like each other. I had no idea the powerful lesson he taught me that day was that maintaining liking your partner is actually more difficult than maintaining loving them at times. Most of the couples who come in to see me don't like each other when they first come in for counseling. Maintaining like and caring requires us to do the little positive things nearly every day. Having a friendship with your partner can be a challenge at times, but it is so difficult over the long haul. The most revolutionary thing that I've talked about doing today is nothing that I've talked about doing today. It's maintaining doing the things that I've talked about doing today, day after day, month after month, and year after year. And as for my parents, ironically, they found their friendship again after my brothers and I were long out of the house. Maybe it was us. They started doing the little things that they'd neglected to do when they were together. Things like spending time together, talking again, and expressing appreciation and gratitude. In fact, in the last note my mom left us after she passed away, she wrote, "Your dad was the best. He absolutely felt the same. A little really does go a long way." Ugh, that's it.
I am tearing up here. This is so good, Dr. Helm. Okay, so first of all, so your mom has passed, right? Okay.
Both my parents.
Okay. So we might want to just really, honestly, we're to really hammer that home a little bit stronger at the end. I want to make sure that we write that down. Okay. First of all, I think that what you have created, it should be like required watching for anyone before they get married or like before they even date, right? Because it's good currently. Like, of course, this should be, everyone should watch it if they, or listen to this if they're married, but also it's like going into the relationship, knowing these things, right? That this is what makes a really successful relationship. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with, you know, what she makes, what he does for a living. Is he bald? Does he have kids? Does he not have kids? Like all that laundry list of what we kind of go into what we want to date someday or what we want to marry. It really is those, what you said, the little things. It's the little things. Okay. First, you are very entertaining to watch. You have a performance quality that is really wonderful and it's not forced. It is natural. And it's funny because I talk about this with client or with people all the time. And I say, you have to be yourself, but you're the performance quality to this, you know? And so I could tell that these are things like when you did laugh or smile, they are things that you would naturally laugh or smile at, but you've had to do that over and over again as performing this. And you have to be very present in thinking about it and thinking about the meaning behind it to make sure that that natural laugh doesn't come off forced because you've done this presentation over and over again. And it's still extremely, it sounds extremely natural and it looks natural when you smile, when you do that laugh for performance quality during this. It's really lovely. It's really lovely. And that's so hard to teach someone. It comes so naturally for you. You have a beautiful smile throughout. Like and it's not forced. Again, like some people just don't smile naturally, but they know what the smile does when you're on stage, what it does to the audience. And you have such a natural way of doing it where it doesn't seem forced. And it really does light up your face. And it gives us this pause where we can kind of catch up a little bit too. And it really, and it like puts a punctuation on what you're saying. And it's beautifully played the way you do it. You are so easy to watch and you are so entertaining. This is just, it's great. So we're very limited by the TEDx stage, right? But I'm telling you this because I could watch you for 45 minutes, an hour. You're that good of just watching you perform.
Well, thank you.
It's really, really cool. It's really cool to see this. All right. Now I'm going to go through some notes and like, this is what's great is that it's really there. Like, this is a beautiful talk. It's a beautiful speech, beautiful presentation. I'm just going to tell you some things that I have found that were at times maybe confusing that you could just add, like we're talking about like a couple words and boom, it will not make me, what happens is when an audience starts to think about, what did she say? What did she mean by that? Who is that?
Okay.
we lose the next couple words that you say, and I don't want anyone to be lost. Okay, you already have a solid teaching on this. You have great takeaways. You have great education in this. You have a great performance. What I want to make sure is that people aren't ever taken out because they're thinking about something that you said. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go over, kind of a laundry list of this.
The more critique, the better.
Okay, so, cool. Yeah,
fire
well,
away.
Better. Yeah. When you talk about, after you do the whole story about the divorce and the mom's sleeping on the couch, you get into, you mentioned that there's darkness in relationships. There's you mentioned darkness. I love it because you kind of glossed over it. Like you made it like it was a really easy divorce. Like it was just kind of like, she all of a sudden started sleeping on the couch, and then all of a sudden there was this family meeting. Is there anything you can sprinkle in that there was some kind of darkness, there was any kind of animosity, there was any kind of anxiety feeling? You mentioned that your grandpa died, and then all of a sudden your mom is sleeping on the couch. But when you said it, it wasn't immediately that there was a divorce. It could have been like there was a medical issue, like all of a sudden she's having cancer, you know? So there needs to, I think that there could be some clarity there where you can be vulnerable enough about your own story. Okay. To sprinkle in something that was dark from your family, your childhood. Because you say that there's darkness, but then you don't get vulnerable enough to really share some darkness.
Okay. Like she withdrew. That's what happens. Her dad died. She withdrew.
Yeah. You know, something, did you ever hear a fight? Did you ever hear anything, or a squabble or anything?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And they actually didn't get divorced. They remain separated.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we should probably pinpoint like that at the, we should mention, like, there was never a divorce, but they were separating. They were living in separate homes, something, whatever you want to say to that. But the first note would be if you could sprinkle in some kind of darkness, because you say that there's darkness, but then you never open up. And that's what a lot of people do, is like, we want to say that this happened to us, and then we want to teach that this, but we don't ever. I think it'd be much more impactful if you let yourself go there and get a little bit more vulnerable about your personal story. Okay. You mentioned David Attenborough, like we all should know who he is. And I don't know who he is. And I don't want me to be 20% of the audience or even 5% of the audience. So if you could mention it, like right at the beginning, the famous animal documentary producer or whatever, and then say David Attenborough. Okay. Fair?
Yes.
Because, okay.
Or I could take his name out and just say like a nature series.
Yes, you could say like a nature series, you know, the lioness, whatever. But we don't even need his name, because what happens in the mind of your audience is we go, I don't know who that is. Who is that? I'm not smart enough to know who that is. Does everybody else in the audience know who that is? And it takes away from your awesome speech, because people are sitting there going, I don't know who that is. And if they do know who that is, they're going, oh yeah, he's really great. Oh, remember that one about the elephants? And you've taken them away. So if it is not needed, don't even say the name. Okay. Does that make sense? What goes on in people's brains?
It does.
Does everybody know who this is? Why am I not watching? Am I not cool enough? Am I not smart enough? You know?
I could just say a nature series without his name.
Love Lab. Okay. So here's this famous therapist, this love therapist or whatever, relationship therapist. You know, you don't want to be sitting next to him on a plane. Well, and I was like in my head going, I actually would love to sit on it, because I want him to, I love being like dissected a little bit. But the Love Lab, like, how funny is it called the Love Lab? And that he's obviously, I mean, he's a love therapist. So just say his Love Lab, like really enunciate it. Because I was kind of like, did she just say Love Lab? That's cute.
Yes.
But someone else is going to go, oh, that's cute. It's Love Lab, because he's a relationship consultant. So why don't you say Love Lab? Like, really, it's called the Love Lab. Like, play it up a little bit. You know, it's called the Love Lab. Like, that's where he does his research. It's cute. So, but I just think, like, really hammer that home. It's the Love Lab. Or don't do it at all. Like, just say like he does his therapy, because it's an interesting point. So either really, you know, put a punctuation on it, or why
Okay.
mention it all? Okay.
Okay.
I love when you're talking about the examples, like the 4 ways that relationships are ripped apart. Was it 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fact that you gave real world examples really took us there, and it was huge, because when you just say they're this, and this, it's like, oh no, we don't do any of that, or what really is that? But you taking the time to give us those real examples, we go, oh, okay, all right, cool. I don't criticize. I do sometimes do the complaint. Great. I would not criticize like his whole nature and being good. Okay. So that was huge for the audience to really understand what you were saying. Huge.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time in your speech to explain those.
Okay.
So when we go to Sue Johnson, you say Sue Johnson, in her therapy work or something like that. If you could just start with the therapist, Sue Johnson, because as soon as you said Sue Johnson, I did that thing again where I'm like, ooh, who is that? I don't know who she is. Should I have known who she was? And then you said in her therapy work or something, but stop us from, because we can't say the therapist first, because then we know right away, Sue Johnson. Okay. I might not know her because I'm not in that industry. Okay. Does that
So
make
can I
sense?
say something like Sue Johnson's emotion-focused therapy for couples?
Is she a therapist?
She's a therapist and a researcher. Both of these people are
Okay. So if
heavy
you
on
could say, I just want you to say something like the researcher or the therapist, Sue Johnson, in her work and blah, blah, blah. Then you could say that. But the big point is that you said she does therapy, but
Yeah.
after you said her name, I just want a title before that. So I know
Okay.
right away, oh, the therapist, Sue Johnson, like she's mentioning another therapist.
Okay.
It's really not that you didn't give enough information about her. It's just that we needed that information sooner. So we're not sitting there going, who's Sue Johnson? Was she a vice president or a CEO of a company, or is she a therapist? Okay.
Okay.
The whole point there is I don't want them to miss what you say next, because I'm wondering who Sue Johnson is. And then you say in her therapy work or whatever, I'm like, oh, she's a therapist. Good. But I spent some time, and we cannot lose the audience even for a second.
Okay.
I love the hammering home. A little goes a little goes a long way. You talked about the negative, then you talked about the positive. What I couldn't help to think, but was, since that became such a big part, it was totally the whole back end of your talk is the little goes a long way, or might have been the end third. It's a big chunk. Could you sprinkle it in earlier? Like when you talk about your mom going onto the couch, maybe that's a point where you say something like, a little move, a little something, but I didn't think much of it. Or a little change in our lives, or a little change in the dynamics in our home, but I didn't think a lot of it. But you want to plant that with the audience, like that there was a little thing. And it wasn't really little, actually. When you talk about little, you're talking about, saying, gosh, what's wrong with you? I put it in my calendar and you still can't take the garbage out. What's wrong with you? Can't you stay on top of this? Sleeping on the couch really isn't a little thing. That's like a big move. But maybe you could just plant something in our head early on, because it becomes a huge, like, make it the theme, a little goes a long way.
Because that's the title. So I try to pull in the title of the talk. So the title is
do it earlier.
Okay. So the title is Revolutionize Your Relationship, a Little Goes a Long Way. So I tried to make sure, like at the end, I pull back in the word revolutionary.
Great.
Right. Okay.
So now I think that you find something like, maybe the couch isn't it, but then when you add that darkness, you say something like, and all of a sudden, my parents fought a little bit more, there was little changes in their relationship. And then all of a sudden there was that meeting. So, but just little, I would love for you to sprinkle that in way earlier, and specifically in your family story before the talk that we're going to separate.
Okay.
I just think that, especially because it's the theme, it'll show that this was a beautifully constructed talk, that you really thought to weave that in. And that's what storytelling is, right? We kind of foreshadow things, but it'll be great, because then at the end, you're really focusing on the little goes a long way. 3/4 in, you say something like the Gottmans say. Well, which is fine if we're reading a newspaper, reading an article in a magazine or something, because I can go back and go, oh, wait, who were the Gottmans? Oh, that was that therapy couple. But when we're talking about a speech, a talk, we don't have time for that. So instead, I spent some time wondering who were the Gottmans, and then I had to write it down. So if you just say something like, that couple I talked about earlier, the therapist couple, the Gottmans, they say X, Y, and Z. So just remind us. Does that make sense, doctor? Like how the mind thinks? Okay. And then,
please call me Katherine.
Kathryn, how does that feel? Does that feel like these are just tiny little tweaks?
Yeah, these are good.
Make the audience even more involved and with you on every word that you say during that whole 16 minutes.
No, great. This is great. This is great.
Awesome.
I really want to say thank you so much for your time. I mean, you're so generous with your time, and I really appreciate the feedback. So
no problem. I'm excited for you. And you gave me some good reminders of, I am going to make sure I definitely thank my husband when he empties the dishwasher, because I'm so grateful he does it. All right, cool. Well, thank you. And thanks for sharing with me. And thank you for educating me even on my relation. This is great. We all need reminders. Did you learn something from her talk that you can apply to your own relationships? I know I can. If you would like to watch Dr. Helm's TEDx talk, you can find it on her website at drkhelmconsulting.com. The link is in the show notes. Special thanks to Dr. Helm for agreeing to share our work together and for teaching me some very important lessons.